Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Kamerie Gibson show where we talk about transforming our pain into power. And today I have a special guest with me here today. His name is Addison.
Hello.
Would you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience for me, please?
Hello. How are you doing? My name is Addison Sarter. I'm from DC, 29 years old, a student at Morehouse College, and it's just very, just dedicated to, political activism, things like that, and just, pretty much trying to find a way to pretty much better our conditions here as, Black people in America.
And just to give the audience some context as to how we know a bit about each other, we were talking about it off the record earlier, but could you go ahead and give that story?
For sure. I first started following you through it was the ADOS or ADOS organization. That's pretty much the movement for reparations for descendants of Black American descendants of slavery in America. So I definitely that was definitely something I've been trying to follow over the last year. I know they've been pushing strong for us. So yeah, that's how we first got connected.
Right. So just to share with you, I found ADOS from a woman. She was an educator. I went on this trip, a civil rights trip through the South in 2018 with some journalism students. And there was this woman by the name of, she's now Dr. Marguerite Heinrichs, but she was a educator at Cal State East Bay. She was an AKA, a Black woman from Hunters Point, San Francisco, California. And during this trip, Marguerite was always talking about African Americans, we ain't got no money, Black people ain't got no money, and we in for some trouble, and she was just saying a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm like, damn, this lady is really fired up about this stuff. And my friends around me, so the trip, it included people from the community, educators, professors, students, other high school students. And I didn't really pay attention to what she was saying on the trip as much, but I think she was sending us like links to Antonio Moore's and Yvette Carnell's YouTube channel. And I think I was 21 at the time. And I didn't read them on the trip, but a few months later, I was driving to California, from Texas, and I thought I'd just like play Yvette Carnell's videos. Her videos are pretty long; they're like an hour, and I don't know, just from those videos, I got hooked on it. And I think she was just saying, I don't know if you know who Yvette Carnell is. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, I'm not sure where she's based, but I've seen she's like the founder or co-founder of ADOS.
Yeah, she's one of the founders of it. Yeah, so she actually is a graduate of Howard. She worked on the Hill for a bit. But she's one of the co-founders of ADOS, her alongside Antonio Moore. But I started watching her videos from there, and I really got like entrenched in reparations work. And I ended up joining ADOS Houston when I went to college in Houston, Texas. There was a lot of stuff going on, but yeah, I just wanted to give some background on that. Could you talk about how you got connected to ADOS and the foundational Black American group?
I would say just within maybe around like 2020, 2021, I just felt, especially after George Floyd and whatnot, I feel like the quote unquote case for reparations had really started like just be put out there. And, in terms of like actual issues that like candidates were actually talking about and whatnot. So, and a lot of that was due to, I would say, to Yvette and Antoine Morris, like you said. So I guess just from Instagram, just them marketing, and I forgot how I necessarily first heard about them, but just I know probably through like a post or Instagram.
Sorry, hold on.
Are you good?
I'm so sorry.
Are you good?
I don't know how to turn this off. Like, this is really pissing me off. Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can, but it's all good.
That is so terrible.
It's all good.
No, but it's on my laptop. I like put my phone on airplane mode, And it's like my friend. I'm like, stop, leave me alone.
I feel that.
No, for real, you're just annoying me, and it's messing up the audio. Like for real. All right, I'm so sorry. Can you pick up on the last point you were
You're
saying?
good.
Your
I would
marketing
say, yeah, just
and
the
stuff.
market. I think I came across it on Instagram. Just a lot of, I would say, activists that I may follow probably posted about it or something like that. And I just, as soon as I saw that, I was like, yeah, this is like, right on with what we need in terms of, reparations, cash payments, and closing the wealth gap. So, somewhere between 2020, 2021, that's how I came across it online pretty much.
And what about reparations and African Americans appeals to you?
I would say, just the whole, what do I necessarily like? Oh, so pretty much like how actually can you hear me now? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Went like real silent for a second. I didn't hear you're good though. It's my phone is my phone that's tripping. But I would say, it really appeals to me. I would say just knowing that something that, well, first of all, Dr. King, like that was his, pretty much that was like his goal, like his end goal before he was assassinated. So it's
Hmm.
like, if we just stop short at like voting rights, then it's kind of pretty much a slap in the face of him, because like that's what he died
Yep.
for. So,
Hmm.
and just knowing, just seeing the disparities and seeing how it says, I think it was maybe 244 years that they said it would take for us to catch up with, um, the wealth that, to catch up with the wealth that white people have. So that's like, it would really take something transformative like reparations to really close the wealth gap. Because I look at it as, for example, even abortion. Abortion right now, they say that I think it was most of the abortions were poverty related, or those who were in poverty. So with reparations, I feel like everything's pretty much tied together. So reparations, that closes the wealth gap, reduces poverty, which would then, you know, um, pretty much, help with those type of, issues regarding abortion. But pretty much it's connected to everything, I would say. So just knowing that that's pretty much the solution that, a lot of our ancestors or civil rights leaders were really pushing for before they died is what I feel like really appeals to me for the most part.
In my opinion, I used to be like, why can't they just give people the money? Like they have all this
Right.
money, they give everybody else the money. Why can't they just give it to us? Why do you think it's just not that simple for the US to give African Americans what they've been owed?
I would say because they don't want to. It would pretty much, it would pretty much, if they were to close the wealth gap, then that's just pretty much that just makes us harder to exploit, harder to, for example, you close the wealth gap, that's less poverty. Poverty breeds crime. So you fix the poverty, that means less crime, which means less, inmates in the prison. And this summer I saw that Arizona, like the head of like the prison, the jail system, prison system in Arizona was, like pretty much pleading. He was like, if we, he was saying that the economy in Arizona would collapse without, the prison labor, which is like, dang, like they're really saying like there's our cities and states rely on, that type of thing. So I would say because, and Dr. King, I was reading through his, it was Where Do We Go From Here? And he was
What?
saying that, in order for this system to run, pretty much they need a non-black, um, low-wage, cheap labor force, and 9 times out of 10, that's usually black people. So closing the wealth gap really changes. It disrupts their system pretty much. I would say.
Yeah, and for some reason, I just don't understand like people who come to America now, who have came to America afterwards, who just they really just do not care. They don't even respect anything that I feel like we've done. I don't know. It's just, and I'm saying that just based on how we're treated and how a lot of us are relegated to. Let's be real. Like the media
Yeah,
does it. It's their fault. Education does it. They're the ones that are brainwashing people, and people are easily manipulated. But still, for people to just not question, like, dang, why is it that these people are like this? If we're so terrible, if we're so dirty or bad or whatever they call us, what do you think it is about other ethnicities or nationalities that prevents them from investigating the myths about black
I
people?
would say. I would say the first part you hit on the head with like media and whatnot. It's just for if you're talking about someone who's coming to this country and so all they've seen about black people is just what they see in the media, whether it be rap, movies, and whatnot. So it's just like I forgot who said it, but like someone basically said if you were just to look at the media, it looks like kind of makes like kind of looks as if we're not really suffering as much as we are. In the sense, it's more so a
Mm-hmm.
lot of stuff is kind of like glorified, especially with. I mean, I love rap for sure, definitely, but a lot of it is glorifying certain stereotypes about ourselves, um, where it makes it easy for somebody who doesn't know anything about black people to say, oh, they're struggling because that's all they care about is just these certain such and such. What you see in the rap videos, and I would say maybe they probably because a lot of them do come go through a lot of obstacles back in their homeland. So it's where they come here, they're like, all right, let me just stay out the way, make my money. We made it to the quote unquote like promised land and whatnot, and obviously there's obviously anti-blackness back in their homelands most likely because we know it's everywhere. White supremacy is global, so I would say a mix of all three of those things for sure.
How has how have those attitudes affected you in your personal everyday life?
Um, I would say, shoot, I would say actually this week. I'm not sure if you know who Eleanor Holmes Norton is. She's the
No.
congressman in DC. So DC, we're not a state yet, but we do have a congresswoman who
Mhm.
tries to advocate on our behalf. And so growing up, um, she was looked at as like a iconic black civil rights figure, and she just proposed an emergency bill that would allow migrants coming from Texas and California to come to DC and like allocated like millions to set them up and whatnot to. And don't get me wrong, I believe they deserve assistance and whatnot. But it's like in DC they like are knocking down like homeless tents, telling people to clear out. And I would say 80, probably 90% of the homeless people in DC are black. So it's like you're getting rid of these people who are who helped build this country, um, and you're making way for people who obviously deserve help. It's not that they I don't want them to get help. It's more so like, all right, if y'all can allocate this money, then y'all can do it for us. And so I met with her office and the legislative council, pretty much about 15 minutes of them giving me the runaround. I was like, so pretty much you're saying she can propose a reparations bill just like this, but she wants to play it safe and um, not do it for political reasons. And he was like, yes. And I had my sister even listen, and I was like, yo, like listen to the runaround that they're giving us. And so yeah, that was just like especially now with like everything going with Jackson, Mississippi with the water, like it's just like, hey, it was just a slap in the face. To answer your question, I know I was rambling. I would say to answer your question, it affects me in that type of sense of it's just a slap in the face that you know even and before we even got to that I was just talking about reparations to the legislative council, and he was just like, I guess started the story off with yeah, and he's white man, so so he was telling me a story. He's like, yeah, Congresswoman Holmes Norton, I think her great grandfather, like there's this famous story about him, not replying back to the slave master's name or whatnot, and which is obviously right on, good story, but it's like, all right, you told me this story, so like she's a black woman, descendant of slaves, but she doesn't have I guess the heart to do an emergency, bill or whatnot, even though she just showed that she can. So it's just, yeah, I would say slap in the face, but I would say it's maybe a little controversial, but to go back to the root of your question, um, there have been, times where my friends, we've been at like, Ethiopian bars or whatnot, and like they've like started like fights and whatnot. Like I've had like growing up, I'm thinking like black is black, like everybody from all over, we're all one people. But I've been starting to learn that there's a certain segment of African populations that you know don't necessarily look at us as like there's they have like the aspect of they're loyal to their tribe or to their country, and it's like we go back like we said with propaganda that oh, we're just thugs and whatnot and such. So like it is that I would say eye opening for sure. I was in like a my bad, go ahead. Mhm.
No, while you're saying that, I'm thinking like, I say like, I'm thinking, yeah, that's bound to happen. And it's interesting how frustrated we are when someone doesn't have the same
Yes,
consciousness that we do. It's
right,
how could they? How could? Same with me. I'm black and Mexican, but I was raised by a black woman, my grandmother, and my father, a black man. My consciousness is going to be that of the people that raised me and spoken to
right.
me every day, and told me whatever story they did. My community shapes me. I'm not saying that's a counter what you're saying. I'm saying that's what should be targeted, instead of the behaviors that come out of it. Because I would say that there is a difference between the African American consciousness, say here in America, say here in LA, versus, to an extent, it's not that different, maybe, but what do you think about that?
You said the different consciousness of
Yeah, like, in how between African American people and
right.
other people from
I was yeah,
African
I would say
countries.
I definitely would say it's a but it's so weird because I hear the same. I'll hear like, oh, African Americans, you guys view race differently than the rest of the world. But then when you look at
Yeah,
their homelands, black people are at the bottom of society in their home. So it's like how like we're not looking at it like we're looking at it differently because we can simply see like what's going on. So it's like if clearly race means something if all the, black people in your country at the bottom of society everywhere.
Everywhere, Mexico, everywhere, like all the people are
Yeah.
hidden.
And I would say a lot of it is I mean, media with America, painting America is like this, mega paradise. And because it's a lot of people's history isn't, their suffering isn't linked to, suffering in America. So it's like they
That's
look at
true.
America
That's true.
as this place to reach, where it's like, I feel like if hypothetically, if there was a revolution or a riot, it'd be like, they don't know.
Hmm.
I feel like we'd be more willing to maybe want to, tear it down, but it's like they may want, Black Lives Matter, things like that to improve, but it's not, they may not want a full, um, quote unquote overthrow of society because like, dang, it's better than where we just came out of. So that's how,
I didn't think about that. That's cool. Well, ooh, when you said how some immigrants, migrants, people who want to leave where they were born at. Oh my goodness, who
right,
made up these terms? They come to this country to reach something, and I was thinking like how some of us may just who are already here, we just trying to get settled. We just trying to be able to kick our feet back up, like the white folks that used us. Like we was working a lot, we ain't get paid for it. We just trying to be equal. We just trying to be equal to the
right,
people that brought us over here.
right,
Like hello, hello. That's really
exactly,
it. That's how I looked at it when you said they trying to reach. Yeah, that's because, and I think it's so crazy how even today people are able to advocate for themselves. Not that they're able to advocate for themselves, but that they're able to do it and get what they want versus us. Like we're literally dying, begging, doing all types of stuff, going to school, trying to educate ourselves on what happened to us to fight for
right.
shit back. It's just nobody sees. I just think it's fucked up that we're always just left at the bottom. Could you talk about some of the experiences you had as a
Sure,
black
for
man?
sure. Experiences in terms of racism. Okay,
Racism,
I would say in terms of
stereotype.
stereotypes. Uh,
I want to hear anything that you feel
okay,
needs to be heard
okay.
by folks.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I kind of like told you a little bit about it, but yeah, this past yeah, Christmas, the week of Christmas, um. So pretty much, I was working at this shelter during the height of the pandemic and all that, and this is right around Omicron, like really like picking up and whatnot. And we I was notified by my supervisor, pretty much like, oh, we're getting this client. She's a white woman who pretty much, she gets drunk and calls, her case managers, nigger, and like black bitches and stuff like that. They're telling me like all this going, like I'm thinking this is like her history, and like she's improved or whatnot. That's why we're taking her into the shelter. And for background, so pretty much the shelter provided um, things like just permanent supportive housing, medicine, pretty much almost like a halfway house, get them back on their feet and whatnot. So she
Hmm.
there was one incident where I came into work and they're like, oh yeah, they're like, oh, the white lady, she's already going off and whatnot. She was just calling, one of my coworkers black bitches and whatnot, blah blah blah. And she came to vent, like she came to like vent to the office, say, oh, this is what happened. People were such and such, and I'm like, I mean, you can't be like, yeah, you can't, be calling black women black bitches or whatnot, such and such. So she kind of like I guess because I didn't take her side or whatnot, it was just she just wasn't you know, pretty much rocking with me the whole time there. So fast forward, another day comes, and same thing's going on. She's you know, kirking off on the security officer, real short black woman, like pretty much just going off on her, just talking down to her, saying, you know, and my mind you, she's not one of, because obviously, you know, like shelters and whatnot, you know, people have mental health issues, but it's like, it's more so like she wasn't a fool. She was, you know, she had a job. She was. I'll show you how. I'll speed up the story to show you how she was not a fool. So pretty much, she um you know, I told her to, you know, go back to your unit or whatnot. And then she was like, no. They started, you know, cussing at me and just saying, and I just like, but she's saying stuff that's like not, it's clear she listens to these very conservative, like, you know, podcasts or whatnot. She was like, these black women in here are using up the all the services in DC, and she was calling them like crackheads and whatnot. She just started going off, and I just kind of just like popped off, and really, you know, pretty much told her about herself, and just really just pretty much told her about herself. It's just it was all like a I guess pent up of emotions from you know, her constantly, because we see it on the internet, you know, Karens and whatnot, but like when you like see it like just like real in person of them like saying racist stuff to either you or people you working with, then it's like it's like in my head I'm like, dang, if I don't like say something, then it's like I can't like, how can I, if I don't say something, then it's like, dang, can I be a quote unquote activist and like just let this racist ass white woman just like cuss me out and cuss my coworkers out? So I, you know, pretty much popped off on there and whatnot, you know, was had some words for her, but ended up getting they ended up letting me go pretty much because of that. And unfortunately it was two black women too, so that were, you know, CEO. I mean, it's a, you know, a lot of nonprofits are, you know, white founded or created by, you know, but they had, you know, black faces in there. But so yeah, I would say that was the most recent experience of, you know, of something like more so like less structural racism, but more like in your face racism, and especially how it was pretty much handled because you know, like my mom's side of the family is from Mississippi, from like the area where I think the area where like the Emmett Till trial like went down. So it's like, and they definitely had me learn those things as like a little kid, like especially the story of Emmett Till, and that definitely really stuck with me as a child. So like I guess like you kind of, it's hard not to think of that type of stuff when you're having a white woman just cuss and say nigger and black bitches and stuff like that. So it's like, nah, I just,
Yep.
yeah, that's what you think of. You kind of, those emotions like pretty much pop off when you don't think it's gonna pop off or whatnot. But
Yeah, no, for sure. I was gonna ask you, how did it make you feel to be let go
man,
by black women?
I kind of, I felt like really betrayed. Honestly, I was like, dang, especially like, you know, those same coworkers will like, they would tell me like, why are you like, why coworkers and supervisors, whatnot. Like we would get, or me specifically, I would, get reprimanded for, not reprimanded, but like they pretty much make comments like, "Oh, why are you like going, out of your way to like help them, blah blah blah." Like these are women who are like got HIV, got diabetes, cancer, and stuff like that. So it's like they, and like they'll make comments like, "Oh, you should work at a nursing home if you're gonna be like these, like this nice to the clients and whatnot." So it's like they see that, and it's 90, probably like 95% black women in the like clients living in the shelter. So it's like they see that the residents there, really, enjoy coming to talk to me and vent, stuff like that. And I would say, yeah, just for them to see that I'm, trying to, that I was actually standing up for, someone who was a black woman or whatnot. Um, my bad, the connection. You froze up right quick. Okay.
I just heard
Yeah,
that
it
you
froze a
you
little
trying
bit.
to
I
do
was
what?
saying like just the process of just the act of them seeing me, stand up for, a black woman that's getting, verbally abused or whatnot, and still to let go. It's like it was a weird process. It was something very weird to process, where it's like you're firing somebody for standing up for a black woman who's being verbally abused by a white woman, and like the fact that it's two black women that did it. It's like obviously, like you said, we not a lot of people had that same type of consciousness, and they're just looking at, I got to save my ass pretty much. And so it's yeah, it was frustrating to experience. And people have definitely um have told me like, yo, you could actually file you know a certain like lawsuit for this, because it definitely violates you know your rights in a sense, because I definitely, and I'm very open with like friends in terms of going to therapy, things like that. So like it's definitely documented how going back from a child, just how like racism really affected me from like as a kid. So I obviously have that on file in terms of like medically, in terms of just like, and we've talked about this in terms of generational trauma and things like that. And um, for example, like there's this joint called Blacks and Wax Museum in Baltimore. So it's like the
Okay.
celebrity. You know how they have like celebrity like wax museums where it looks like their figure looks real. So like around like
Yeah.
3 or 4 years old, my parents took me to one of those, but it was for like slavery and Jim Crow, and that like spooked the. It was like so it was pretty much looked like it had like I think it was like the slave ship type stuff, and like it was like a haunted house really for slavery or Jim Crow. And just a lot like they took me to see like Amistad that same year when I was like 4, and
Hmm.
the Emmett Till documentary. I seen
Okay.
that when I was like 9 years old, and like Roots and stuff, like real early on, like 8 or 9. So it it for like in terms of therapy and whatnot, I actually have a anxiety disorder called OCD, and most people associate it with like being like real neat and whatnot, but it's really a lot of it is like just having just like pretty much anxiety attacks daily over like different like phobias or things like that. But some of it is anxiety caused from like pretty much intrusive images. And so the first time I knew, or I started showing symptoms, was right after the seeing the Emmett Till documentary. and like how his face was just like pretty much mutilated, and I like couldn't get those like I guess I couldn't get those images like out of my head as a kid. Like it was just like I remember that when I was about fourth grade, 9 years old, it like stayed in my head like that whole year, like and just growing up, like I could see, something of, lynchings or like, just documentaries like that. And like, it would just fit like the images would be so like intrusive that like, it would literally feel like you're in that time period. I know it sounds like very like spooky and what like, but it like, so just a lot of anxiety from, that type of thing. And I definitely believe in the whole, traumas passed on because my mom, she's spent time in Mississippi, and my grandfather was pretty much the only black doctor in like that like a 50-mile radius of Greenwood. So he was like treating like Stokely Carmichael whenever they would get, the protests, they get, beat up or whatnot. And so my mom, she saw a lot of that type of, she saw, my grandfather was shot at a protest. So she like was saying all this stuff. So I say all that to say like it's with the stuff like
Passed
passed down,
down.
things like that. A lot of anxiety, like a lot of us are, really battling those type of things, but in different ways. Um, but I would say, referring to the job, people have been telling me like, yo, you could, like you could. It's documented that you're very, you've had a lot of anxiety related to, race and things like that. Like you could sue for, being fired and whatnot. But it's I mean, that
Hmm.
obviously, I would want to, but I definitely do think they probably might not even care, but I definitely would would want them to know just how like out of pocket they were to fire somebody like their own kind, like in 2022 for for something like that. It's like how can you not understand in 2022 um, why somebody would go off when white people are saying nigger and stuff like that. So yeah, my bad. I just went in the whole tangent.
No, you said a lot of good stuff, and I really just wanted to get your feelings on that because I know how painful that can be, and I know that you're not the only person that's experienced that. I know my dad had a similar experience, and for some reason, it really stuck with him too. And I think especially for him because of how much he loves and is the word not revere.
Yeah.
What is that the right word? Like how much how reveres after for black women. What was what was your relationship like
You
with
said
black
during that
women?
growing up.
Um, growing up?
I would say
Uh-huh.
it was so my relationship with black, I would say it was always, like for example, I was definitely like a mama's boy for sure. So like, definitely my mother, I have an older sister. So I would say just especially my older sister who's always like, really keeping me in check in terms of like, and I feel like that's something that what's his name, Kanye does not like. If he had just like an older black sister or something like that to really, you know, because I know he's really, I can't imagine from like losing my mom, and I got two older siblings, so I can't imagine, how close he was with his mom, and just to be a only child. So, but that's a whole nother story. So I can't. So it's hard to judge him, but it's just like, dang, like you could tell he really needs that, black woman in his life. But I would say, all my, I would say, yeah, from pre-K, I'm still cool with, even just the first childhood, friendships from like my black homegirls from pre-K kindergarten to now. We were just at like a winery this past weekend. So I would say I find myself being able to have more discussions with black women more about these type of issues in terms of like racial topics. I mean, I do have my homeboys who I talk to about it, but like I would say, it's only a few out of my other homeboys that are real passionate about it like me. Whereas I feel like it seems like um, I've just been able to have these type of discussions more organically with black women, I would say.
What was it like for you being a mama's boy? Um,
I would
I
say,
don't know what that's like.
man, being a mama's boy, I would say, um, I mean, I was the youngest as well, so I guess I was
What's it like?
so I was,
Oh, oh.
spoiled on that end. Definitely got all the ass whoopings from my dad, but
Hmm.
I definitely from my mom's. I was definitely, spoiled in that aspect. Um, but um,
How much did y'all's
it.
relationship mean to you?
I mean, definitely meant everything to me for sure. Um, as she was first diagnosed with cancer when I was like 12. So I would say, and so she passed away 2016. So from 12 to 23, um, she wasn't really able to be her best self. So it was, in the sense of, um, kind of, in and out of the hospital on constantly going through
Mm.
surgery, things like that. So it was, those type of things, obviously because, just stress in a household. But, but yeah, as I approach, I'll be 30 next August. So just, and me and my brother talk about this. I appreciate it. Me and my brother talk about this all the time. Like, damn, like, yeah, like mama's right about such and such, and a lot of stuff you don't really, appreciate until you start to mature and whatnot. Um, so I would say, definitely had a. My mom was, I would say, she was the first person that really, like, when I was going through anxiety, she was the first person that
A good
really
relationship?
put me on to. I mean, I knew about Tupac, obviously, growing up, but she was the first one to expose me to his, like, coping with how he was able to, cope and vent with, like, depression and things like that, with his, with his pain. So I guess that goes to show just how we just vibed on that aspect of, because Tupac definitely is somebody who I looked up to as like a hero and whatnot, a black icon, black activist and whatnot. Man, I would say like party song or whatnot, maybe like How Do You Want It or
Mm.
America's Most Wanted. But in terms of
Hmm.
like him just dealing with like human experiences, shed so many tears.
Ooh.
He has a song called "Who Do You Believe In" that I think came out after he passed away. Who do you
Hmm.
believe in? Um, shed so many tears. Who do you believe in? And Lord knows.
Ooh, Lord knows. Because if I wasn't high, I would probably try to blow my brains out. But yeah, I know it's faster than that.
Right,
But I was just replaying that one
right,
bar over in my head a lot, just thinking about like
right. Yeah, he
how
was really
dependent.
going through it. It just when you listen to those
Yeah.
lyrics, like damn, he was really
Yeah. I just found that song like a few years back. He has so much, and he died at my age. It's crazy. Like that man was able
at
to
25.
do all that he
That's
was able to
crazy.
do. Crazy.
At 25,
Um,
it's
but
crazy.
yeah, that's really
Crazy,
cool,
isn't it?
man. That is crazy, man. That is so crazy. I feel like kind of like he knew what his purpose was too, so he didn't really waste no time. That's why he was so adamant about recording as many songs as he did and being as vocal and loud and as boisterous and kind of reckless. And I don't know if he would have had the same impact had he grew to be an old age, because a lot of us mellow out the older we get because we want to be comfortable. We want to, we want to have our job. We want to have our security, but it's something about being youthful that keeps you in the I don't give a fuck what the consequences are type of mindset. And honestly, the revolution is it starts with the young people. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about Tupac because I love him so much too.